Hello, testing. Hello. So I was thinking about this a lot, and I was thinking about Overwatch 2. So Overwatch 2 is a game where basically you're playing Overwatch 2 a lot, and you're playing DPS or support, and you just get one shot, or you're playing tank, and because of your hitbox, they can hit everything on you, and you have to always play cover and always create space for your team, which may be difficult depending on the circumstance. There's a lot of issues with the game, is what I'm saying. And a lot of the roster is when you're in lower elos, the roster you can play like most of it fine, right? But the issue is damage and one shots. So that has probably been the most complained thing about Overwatch 2. There's too many one shots in the game. There's a lot of reasons why this would come to be, and I want to highlight some reasons that I have personally looked at, as well as other questionable things that they've done in terms of balancing, and also what they haven't done when they've moved Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2. I made a small kind of script for it on like a notepad. I think people have already seen at the beginning. But I'm wondering, if this will go to the right people. I don't think it's going to be really going that far. But, it's just something to put my mind towards. Because I've been thinking about this. I really am engrossed with balancing in games and what healthy balancing should be and fair balancing. Now, sometimes things can be unhealthy in games, such as one shots. Why are one shots unhealthy? Well, overall, they're just not very fun to play against. One shots can come in all shapes and sizes, though, as I'm going to be going into. And the reasons why one shots actually exist are things that I'm going to be going into as well. So I'll just kick it off now. So I think if you're going to be talking about one shot being in the game, you have to look at a lot of heroes for that. For example, Hanzo, Widow, Sojourner. Sojourner, they have quote unquote removed with a one shot, but not really. It's still 195 damage headshot if you hit it 130 burst at, it's just a railgun. You just shoot it, you charge it and shoot it. And due to a lot of tanks in the game not having shields and having big hitboxes, you can kind of just charge it off them and then one shot the backline. To be truthful, I don't even know if there's damage fall off on that. I'll have to check real quick. So, alt fire damage fall off 40 to 60 meters. So there's a lot of issues with this. 40 to 60 meters is kind of insane. And it's even kind of easy to hit as well. And you can let it go at any time. So you don't have to charge it all the way as well. There's a lot of issues with that. Hands-on Widow, for multiple reasons, are issues. And even to a lesser extent, for example, Ashe, I think, is a bit of an issue. 160 damage headshot? Or 150? I'll have to check real quick. So ADS is 75, so that's 150 damage headshot, right? And when you have Mercy damage boost, it should be a 30% damage increase. So as you know, 150 times 30 should be 195 damage headshot, right? That's kind of on the extent of Sojourner, and you can shoot it. But it's kind of drawn back from the fact that she has a very low fire rate, and the fact that it's harder to hit due to it being hit scan. And she has a shorter range than Hanzo Widow. But still, it's still quite a long range. It's 2040 with a normal left click, and then it's 30 to 50 meters with with the ADS hit. But still, that's 195 damage. If you, for example, are playing, if you don't have a Brig on your team who's healing, a Lucio who's on healing, the Ashe can literally throw dynamite, it hits you, and then you die. because she can headshot you with the flames on you as a normal 200 HP target. And, there's obviously Roadhog, who's been extremely controversial for a long time. He got his one shot, quote unquote, removed. You can still do it in very hard, very specific situations. But the fact that it was an issue in the first place, and that was his character identity for a long time, other than being a big, threatening, up close tank shredder who just walks away healing, it's not really that healthy. A character shouldn't be revolved around their one-shot capabilities. And, even Cassidy's kind of an issue sometimes as well, especially if he's being damage boosted. He does 70 damage with his M1. That can go up to 140, which then goes up to 100 and I think it's 192 headshot with the damage boost. With Mercy being so prevalent, being so hard to kill, having a lock-on beam that you can't negate or anything other than killing her, all of those issues can become a big thing. Cassidy also has a grenade that sticks onto you. I threw a grenade through a Baptiste window to Mercy. She just died from full HP. It's a specific situation, but sticky grenade also is a big issue. The ease of one-shots. So when you talk about one-shots in the game, right? So you're playing on, for example, New Queen's Street. No, that's not what I'm asking. New Queen Street Overwatch 2. Top down. Is there a top down version of New Queen Street? I mean, everyone's kind of played on New Queen Street, haven't they? It's massive. It has a really, really large, God, it can go up to 70-meter streets, and then there's also there's also the high ground and stuff as well. And there's, when you go next to the point where the push part where it first starts, there's high ground there. There's a bridge going all the way through the middle. There is a massive long way to go, 4, 5, 6 times. So you have coming out of spawn, you have going down the ramp, and then there's that big long high ground area. Then you can go all the way back to the spawn, right? There's a lot of long places to shoot from, and it's a big balance issue because characters are not based around their classes, as in what classes are supposed to do. They're based around the damage and what damage is supposed to do. So when you play against, for example, a Widowmaker or Hanzo on New Queen Street, and they're actually decent, they can headshot you across the entire map without really much problem. Obviously, there are flanking spots, but it takes a lot of time to get to those. And, it only takes half a second for a Widow to see your head and click it. And then you have to react in that time as well. The one-shots have 4 things. So they have range, they have time, as in the time used preparing for that, or the time used to get close to them for that. They have risk, and they have skill. So for example, Reinhardt, Reaper can one-shot you. So Reaper can get close to you and headshot you and hit all of his pellets in your head. That's a really rare one shot. And he has to teleport in on you or something. He has to walk up to you, which you can hear is dum dum dum, and then he one shots you and kills you, right? And it's not really that fun, but it happens, right? And you have a lot of time to prepare for it. You can hear him coming. You can obviously ADS and try and shoot him, or you can move left and right. You can AD strafe, or you can use an ability and get out. And it's very, very rough to try and do that as Reaper. He has to be very, very close to you. And Reinhardt as well. He has to charge in on you. He has to go all the way in. He has to pin someone, and then he has to pin them against the wall, using his massive body as a hitbox. In a lot of situations, that's not going to happen. A lot of characters have mobility these days. I want to talk about that actually. And they have small hitboxes too. For example, you want to try and pin a DPS or support usually. But you can also pin a tank. But even Bastion has mobility, but he has a ton of health anyway. He can be healed to do Reinhardt pin, especially if he's in tank form, because he has armor. He has 300 HP in armor, and then he gets damage reduction. He can have like 450 effective HP. Reinhardt does 225 damage. Cassidy has a roll to get out of it, and if Reinhardt misses it, he can just fan the hammer and kill him. Echo flies, Genji climbs wall and dashes, Hanzo climbs a wall, Junkrat has his mind, Mei just presses a button, Farad flies, Reaper wraiths and teleports out, or he just doesn't die to it anyway. Reaper doesn't die to Reinhardt pin, 250 HP. You know, as you go on, the only character who can't really reliably get out of Reinhardt pin without dying is probably Symmetra. Symmetra is the only DPS I can think of at the top of my head who can reliably get out of a Reinhardt pin. But you can say, well, what if they don't have a cooldown? Well, there goes the ease of one-shots. It's very easy to just get out of it as a DPS or support if you hold your utility and your abilities. But Reinhardt has to risk a lot to go for this pin a lot of the time, unless he obviously plays very well and he knows that he can go in without much risk, which is a different thing from actually just one-shotting. It's counting cooldowns. So yeah, Reinhardt is a lot of risk going in. It takes a lot of time. He has to charge all the way in. You can hear him as well. There's, to an extent, there's a lot of skill to try and perfectly get someone with it, because you can easily get knocked out of it. And the range of it, Reinhardt has like no range. He has no fast way of getting on you, and he doesn't you get my point. So Cassidy even as well, he got 25 damage range increase, damage fall off, but that's not like 30 plus. When you get to the 30 plus ranges, that's like sniper territory. 25 is like a mid-range DPS on the larger side. That's why Soldier 76 and Cassidy got a buff to their 5 meter damage increase. That made them from not meta to meta in a lot of ranks, which is massive. It's a massive buff, 5 meters, because of the range of the maps. So yeah. But obviously, when it comes to Hanzo, Widow, they can aim, they can do a lot of damage with it. And the thing is, it doesn't take much time. Obviously, Hanzo can be a bit harder in higher elos, but in lower elos, you can kind of spam down a choke point and you can kill people, random headshot them. And Widowmaker can click you across the entire map. She has no damage fall off until is it 50 meters or something? I'm 90% sure it's 40, 50 meters at least. Well, my bad. It's actually 70. So it's even more than that. Obviously, it's not as easy as that. It's not easy to click someone's head as Widowmaker. Obviously you have to say the facts for it. Widowmaker, she doesn't have a lot of it's not very easy to, especially with some heroes in the game having to dive the Widow all the time. But it takes a very long time for a character to do that. She can just click someone's head and they're dead, and then she can reposition. There's not really much risk to it either. She's completely out of the range of people, and most people don't have the damage fall off to be able to deal with Widow. And same with Hanzo too. Hanzo, I'm pretty sure, has 0 damage fall off, and is it's easier but harder because he's a projectile hero with a big hitbox on his weapon. Ashe as well. Ashe can one shot. Well, not one shot, but she can very, very much secure a kill with a Mercy boost. And Mercy being meta is very important to keep bringing that up. 30% damage boost is nothing to snooze on. She can very much take out a support who's, doesn't realize she's below 200 HP. So, as you can see, there's a lot of factors that go into a one shot. And the frustrating part about a one shot is not being able to react to it. And that's probably the worst part about playing against snipers. People just say play behind cover, don't get sniped. But there's a lot of characters who rely on having to be out of cover for at least a second to, shoot someone or, do anything. Most characters can't just stay behind cover the entire game. They have to move someday. And a Widowmaker just sitting there, that's why a Widowmaker takes over high elo games. Because in reality, there's not really much of a counter to her. Other than like picking Lucio and leaving your entire team. Picking Ball or something and then having to go on only her. But, what if a support's looking at her and helping her? Well, there you go. Bam. They don't even have to be with her. You can play Anna and shoot them across the entire map and heal her. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration here. Not to mention all of the sniper heroes actually slow down when they're aiming. So Widow can actually outduel every single sniper in the game. To an extent. Theoretically. The game is obviously not as simple as that. But my point is getting across here. One shots are just not very fun. They're not very great, especially for an ability-based shooter. I think the skill should be more focused on being able to manage resources that you have instead of being able to outdamage someone by clicking them on the head. Because there's a lot of very, very cool characters in this game. I think that, for example, I think a lot of the tanks are very good. Some of them are not very good. I don't like some of them, but I really like a lot of the tanks, such as Reinhardt, Sigma, Diva. I think Diva's a very unique and cool concept. Winston. I think Zarya's shields are really cool as well. I really like Orissa's concept, even if she has been a bit of a menace recently. Ball is interesting, but a lot of them are kind of bruisery. They deal damage to create space rather than using abilities. And abilities can be threatening by dealing damage, but abilities should also be able to provide utility. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of cool support as well. Some of them are very cool. I personally play Moira, but I know she's a bit of an issue. I like the idea of Brig. Brig's really cool. Baptiste is a really, really cool hero. Anna is probably the most staple support these days, along with Mercy. I don't actually like Kiriko, but Lucio's really cool too. Not talking about Zenyatta, who's an issue as well. So, there's a lot of damage in the game. There's way too much damage in the game. For example, Cassidy has... Man, I'm being called out for my sleep here. I'm going to put myself into not to serve on Discord, sorry. Damage, there's too much damage. Most of the characters can easily 100 to 0 a support in 1 or 2 seconds if they hit stuff. Or a DPS in 1 or 2 seconds. Have you noticed how sometimes when you play tank, even you just get melted in 2 seconds because everyone focuses fire on you? And your shield is broken, or you're not playing a hero with a shield? It happens. It really happens. And it can happen when you're out of position, which I respect that happening. But also, I think that the ease of 100 to 0 in someone is just a little bit too much right now. And the reason why you can be 100 to 0'd as well is because, one-shots have to be in the game. Because, a lot of characters deal a ridiculous amount of extended DPS. For example, Cassidy deals 70 damage every shot. And he shoots how many times? I use Cassidy as kind of a baseline for an M1 shooter. Because when you think of an M1 shooter, you think of Cassidy. You think Cassidy, bam, bam, bam. Obviously, there's a lot of ability-based damage heroes too. But they usually have a lot of a harder time. One shot every 0.5 seconds. That's a 140 damage per second. That's kind of insane. Obviously you have to reload, but you can just roll as well. And 140 is, if you hit 3 shots, you kill someone. That's 1.5 seconds, not counting headshots. Not counting grenade as well. Grenade can easily secure a kill as well. Because support can't just always perma heal each other. But there's also too much healing in the game. There's way too much focused healing, which is why one-shots have to exist. So, for example, Hanzo, if you look at Hanzo, he has to one-shot, otherwise he deals 125 damage. It's, that can be healed up, and he has a lot of time to, pull back that string and do stuff. And characters are always high HP because of excess healing. There's a lot of excess healing in the game. There's, like, for example, Baptiste, Moira, Anna, even Mercy can easily heal someone to full. That got kind of changed recently, but it still kind of happens when you, like, hitting a tank who's underneath half HP and Mercy's healing them. That's like 80 damage healing per second or something stupid. 65 healing per second, which can be missed. Anna can deal like 75 healing per shot. Like, I think it's like one shot every like 0.7 seconds or something stupid. So for a tank, you can't really do that. That's like 93.75 healing per second. Yeah, it's kind of rough if you try and kill someone being shot by as an Anna, because even if you can hit people as DPS, that's why there's a big disparity between low and high elo. The ease of dealing damage is very high, but healing is too easy to do. Healing is too easy. Healing is too much. So low elo players can never kill anyone. Low elo players cannot secure a kill on the support without, fucking up their shots. And that's just the truth. It's not as if, like, yeah, DPS and low elos are bad. Well, they are. But also, it's kind of too hard to. Overwatch is being advertised as like an ability-based shooter, but the shooting part is way too important for the DPS role. I really like some of the characters, like Symmetra. Junkrat I kind of like. May's interesting, but May's an issue. But if you actually look at them, all of them are just like kind of shooters, while all of the other characters have very unique things that they can do with their abilities. Obviously, they still shoot, yeah, but the ease of healing is way better. The ease of tanking and using abilities is way better. And shooting people is too hard. That's why DPS is usually a big issue a lot of the time, and damage is a big issue. Not to mention that it's very easy to keep people topped up, like DPSs and stuff. As an Anna, you can kind of like shoot a DPS. Obviously, since it's not effective, the enemy team can still deal damage to your tank or whatever and get more effective damage. But still, the ease of damage is still pretty hard. It's still quite hard to, to shoot people consistently all the time. Even if damage is more than healing, there's still too much healing in the game. So it's a hand-in-hand issue. And character identities, this is a very big important one. Like, character identities are being watered down due to high numbers. A lot of characters, a lot of their power budget is going into high numbers, and they're losing out on what their identity could be. For example, Anna is like, she's very, very cool. She has very unique abilities, but Nade is really, really strong. I want to talk about that later, but Anna, she has incredible focused healing. Moira has a ridiculous amount of healing and can do a lot of sustained damage. That's kind of her identity. But then there's like Baptiste and Mercy and Lucia and Zenyatta. They all have very unique utility, but you have to pick certain supports just because they have very, very high healing numbers. If you like pick Mercy Lucio, it's probably not going to happen that much. It's probably not going to be great for you. And as a DPS and tank, tanks have no healing. Tanks can't heal themselves apart from a certain character. Junker Queen can also like heal herself slightly, and there's also some shields on the characters, but it's not great. Like, DPS, there's like no healing here. You can pick up medkits across the map, but that's still very inconsistent and takes a lot of time if you don't have mobility. Mei has her own healing. Sombra kind of does. Tracer can recall. Soldier has his own healing. There's shields on Symmetra. It's kind of it. So there's too much healing is my point here for a lot of characters. and the ease of them as well. It's very easy. The hardest character to probably heal with is either Baptiste or Anna. But still, Anna has a very, very large high hitbox for healing, while Baptiste has AoE massive healing, like 70 healing per 0.8 seconds, similar to Anna, but in an AoE heal, something ridiculous. Brig can just hit someone in heals. Kiriko has a lock-on heal. Lucio has an AoE heal. Mercy's a lock-on heal. Moira just pisses over everyone. Zenyatta can put an orb on someone, while everyone else has to hit the body perfectly, especially like projectile heroes. They can find it very hard to do consistent DPS, except on tanks. So the transition to Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2, there's one less tank, which means one less, even with barriers being nerfed, like, there's still one less full tank, which means that they haven't properly tuned the numbers to not be like a team deathmatch. There's a lot of times where you just get bursted from full HP. They removed utility because they wanted the game to be better. But one thing that they didn't address is the fact that maybe utility is just too easy. Like, for example, May Freeze, you just have to shoot them. Bridget's shield bash, you just had to hit them with your shield. Doomfist is kind of hard to hit to be honest. But he can still get in on them. And because there's like no real like CC these days, it's really, really rough to kind of stop a Doomfist who's going off, except from Anna. So I think there's like no utility, and I think that's worked against what Overwatch could have been. I think that there's a lot of cool abilities that you could have worked upon to... No, you don't even have to have them as stuns. You can have soft utility too. Utility is very, very interesting, and I think that tanks provided that utility, but now they make space with too much damage. And at the beginning of the game, Sojourner and Roadhog were insanely strong because they could just one-shot people. Kiriko can now cleanse it too. So, it's not great. It's not very fun overall. I mean, it is fun. I love Overwatch too. But I think that it could have been a lot better with a lot of different soft utility like slows and roots. It doesn't have to be a stun. It could be a root or a snare. It could be like Junkrat trap. It could have been like a hack or silence. I think silencers are quite interesting too. What else is there? I think nade is very interesting. Anna nade is very, very interesting because of the implications of having no healing. But Anna's nade is too strong because there is too much healing. So Kiriko is too strong because she can cleanse nade. So yeah. So this is the range of ease being really high. I spoke about this earlier, but all of the damage fall off for like tit scans are quite high, and the map is very strong, very high. So projectile heroes are kind of left in the grave, and along with that, projectile heroes can very much struggle against Pharah because Pharah is a gatekeeping hero. And for example, Symmetra, she can charge up, right? She can charge up a shot after 2 seconds, 180 damage per second, which is really insane, by the way. She can teleport in, kill someone, get out. But she still has to charge it. It's not that easy. She has to place a teleport. She has to go in. She has to not get killed instantly. Torbjorn can do a lot of damage. He can headshot with his projectile, but it's still a projectile. Reaper I've spoke about, Reinhardt I've spoke about. Jungle Queen has to get right up and close personal on someone's head and then shoot it and then axe them or whatever. Sigma can throw a rock and deal 2 hits, but he has to charge up the entire rock. Can't do anything during it. He has to throw it at someone who's not behind the tank or out of position, and then hit 2 of his shots when they've slid over, which is quite a small hitbox, and they also can't be healed during it. That one shot is very hard to do. Genji, he has to dash in to do it, and then he can just die. But even then, to hit 3 shurikens on someone's head, they have to not use any ability, they have to not hear Genji coming, they not have to get healed or protected by their teammates. Junkrat, after the nerf, is very hard to one-shot with. He has very loud footsteps. His concussion mine got nerfed. I think it's like 220 damage with his one-shot, which means that he doesn't even kill some of the damage dealers, like Torbjorn, Reaper, May, Bastion, even Symmetra and Cassidy. They can't get one shot by Junkrat. Echo has to put all the bombs on someone, shoot them, and then laser them. You can react to the bombs a lot of the time, and they're very loud as well. And you can see her in the air, and she can be quite a sitting duck. Doomfist jumps on someone, can get naded, can get stunned, can get shot at. There's a lot of like counters to Doomfist. So yeah, large maps and maps like Junkertown and stuff, it's very hard to use a lot of characters in these environments because they're too spacey, too open, not much cover in the middle of the map. Cover should be more plentiful, but also there shouldn't be too much cover, otherwise snipers are not a thing. But I think it's very interesting because the sniper role has to be looked at. So that was another thing. The reason why snipers are very oppressive as well is because they're not really doing their role. If you think about it, you have to rethink about what roles characters are supposed to be. So, for example, when you play a sniper, what is your job as a sniper? Is it to have a long range elimination? You can do that without one shotting them. But that goes back to too much healing. Everyone's too topped up all the time. The only way where you can secure an elimination is by killing them with a headshot, or dealing damage to their body twice, which they are not being healed and that they are not behind cover. So is it controlling a sideline? I think controlling a sideline sniper would be really interesting with long range eliminations. But for that, I think that one shots have to still be removed. However, I think it should be harder for someone to be a full HP all the time. Healing should be less plentiful, and utility should be more effective without being oppressive. And that's, I think that's what the ideal sniper role could be. And I'm going to talk about what fixes you could do for that. I've spoke about this as well. I spoke about, healing versus damage. Shields, Anna being introduced to the game. People say Anna was a very, very good addition to the game, and I think I'd agree. But the more I've thought about it, the more I think Anna was a band-aid fix to an issue. So shields were meta in Overwatch 1, but it was never usually like that. Double barrier meta became like very oppressive in the later stages, and I think goats were more oppressive before that. But in between that, people used to run stuff like Ryan's Aria. They used to run, Orisa, Hog. They used to run like Winston Diva. It wasn't always just two barriers, and I think that Anna has actually been a very big contributor to that. Barriers becoming meta, as well as snipers becoming stronger as people got better at the game. Barriers became more meta, and we had very large damage numbers because it may have been hard to hit those that damage on support and DPS, but it was not hard to hit it on tanks or barriers. Barriers are very big. So you could make the comparison here and think, wow, maybe the damage was high because of the barriers in Overwatch 1, which wouldn't be completely wrong, in my opinion. And there's a lot of utility. There's a lack of utility now because the tank has been removed. So tanks nowadays have to make damage with space with damage. So half of the tanks in the game, for example, Wrecking Ball knocks you up. Very, very interesting, by the way. I think Wrecking Ball is really cool as a displacement tank. But in reality, the reason why people don't like playing against Wrecking Ball is you can't kill him really that easily, but he can kill you. He can bash into you and then he can knock you up. That's like 140 damage, and not a lot of characters can deal with that. Especially with Wrecking Ball being buffed recently. Zarya may shield a teammate, but your main focus is to build charge and just run in and kill someone. Barriers helped create space. Orisa was a very good example of a character who could create space without having a barrier. Yes, you may be incredibly tanky, but it's not like you have like massive damage threats as Orisa unless you knock someone back with your javelin spin and knock them into a corner and then spear them. The spear is where her main like damage comes from. Unless you're playing against a tank with a massive hitbox, which you can hit every shot on. Orisa could create space by just being a massive fucking wall, which I think is really cool. But Jungle Queen, she kind of runs in and wreaks havoc. I really like the idea of supplying your teammates with things other than barriers, but I think Jungle Queen focuses too much on damage. Roadhog can hook someone out of position, but it's still, he still does too much damage up close, and he threatens tanks by just walking in and dealing damage. D.Va's very interesting with the defense matrix, and I don't think D.Va's a very unfair character. I think D.Va's been very, very much okay for a very long time. Sigma is very fair. I'd say Winston's very fair. Low damage output, but jumps on you and creates a ton of pressure with the barrier. Reinhardt is very fair. Doomfist, I don't think is very fair. You can't have Doomfist being strong because, first of all, he gets countered too easily, but because he has no mitigation to a lot of things. So like Nade, Ana, there's Suzu now, there's other DPS with mobility and stuff, and he's also extremely horizontal. He can't really do vertical damage. Unless you're Zebra, you can't really do much on Doomfist. But a lot of these characters, which are balance issues, I mean, Orisa was a big balance issue, but she had to be because of Hog. Doomfist, Jungle Queen, Hog, Zarya, Wrecking Ball, Orisa. Or when all of these characters are very meta, it can be very bad, and the biggest thing that you have in between them is that they're very kind of selfish tanks. They can be very, very selfish in general. So I think that tank should have, for example, I think tank does too much damage. I think especially does too much damage. I think damage does too much damage. But I think that tank should have low damage of range, medium up close, but high damage in situational circumstances, but not extended damage. Tanks should not have a massive amount of shred damage. And I'm talking about some outliers here, such as Zarya, like 100% charge. She can keep that the entire time. She does like something ridiculous with that shit. She has a ridiculous amount of DPS. And if you don't have a tank who can deal with that, you just lose. You just lose the game. If she's been like healed a lot. And she also has she got buffed recently. It's 170 damage per second beam. It's ridiculous. And there's also I think Wrecking Ball does this pretty okay, but his ease of getting into people and not being able to die is an issue. Roadhog, bam, 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 130 damage per second. It has a massive spread, yeah, but all of the tanks have massive massive hitboxes, apart from Jungle Queen, which I want to talk about. And some of the DPS characters have decently big hitboxes. But he can hook them in with 20 meters. 20 meters is very large, but he still relies on killing them. Jungle Queen does a ton of damage, a ridiculous amount of damage, and the reason why she's an issue a lot of the time is because not even because she's tanky, it's because of a fucking hitbox. Jungle Queen is very skinny. If you compare Reinhardt, Jungle Queen, Winston to Jungle Queen, Roadhog to Jungle Queen's just really skinny. And that's an issue that I think the new characters have had. They're just very skinny hitboxes. Kiriko is probably the hardest character to hit in the game. It feels like I can hit Lucio because he kind of hunches a bit when he wall rides, but Kiriko is just so unbelievably hard to hit in my eyes. And Doomfist knocks you against a wall, you're stunned, can headshot you with his shotgun. That's why very good Doomfist players are just ridiculously annoying to play against. I think Orisa can be very annoying up close as well. I think the spear needs to be tuned and changed a bit, but the whole thing is just I think utility needs to be looked at here. I think there should be more team utility or CC utility and less selfish utility. But also damage should have low utility. I think that Sombra is an issue because of the Invis. The Invis is the most oppressive bit of utility if she's ever strong. Can't play against an invisible Sombra and you just die. Mei needs to be looked at. Mei does too much for DPS. I've always, I heard this once before, Mei should be in tank. I fully agree. I think Mei should be a tank. What would be the issue with that? She already has, she already does tank things. with a few balance changes, she can be a very, very interesting tank. But because when she's strong in damage, she provides too much utility to the team, and she just ends up killing people and stuff. And the blizzards can be very hard to react to because it has a massive AOE. Symmetra is very interesting. I think Symmetra is a very good idea for a hero. I think Symmetra is very unique as well. A beam character who can have like a projectile, but doesn't one shot you unless she charges you. It charges it up with turrets and stuff. I think that if utility is going to be in damage, it should be a way of dealing damage or debuffing them in some way, shape or form, rather than just straight up utility like Mei. And they should have more damage at range, unless they have, unless they're meant to be a short range hero. I think having variety is very important. I don't think characters should just be M1 heroes. There should be more damage in, I think Soldier 76 does this pretty well with his Helix rockets. I think Hanzo Storm Arrows are interesting. I think Cassidy Grenade is interesting, but it's not really... Echo, actually, unironically, is probably the best thing for this. Echo is probably the most interesting in terms of abilities, because her abilities really define the character. And she's a very, very unique character concept. So, just, there's too many M1 heroes. So, for example, Ashe, Cassidy, Hanzo. Bastion is an M1 hero, but he has two forms. That's really interesting. Junkrat is a cool character, very unique projectiles. I think Pharah is a balance issue. There's too much verticality in Pharah. Pharah needs to be changed with the explosions because characters don't have a lot of height mobility a lot of the time, and she can become extremely oppressive. She is a skill checker and she's a hero checker. So if you don't have heroes you can deal with Pharah, you lose. If your players are not good enough to aim at a Pharah, you lose. Even accentuated massively by Mercy. So yeah, I mean Sombra is very interesting with the hack. But they shouldn't be with the invis as it is right now. Just there's too much damage right now. I think that ability should have some more damage in, and snipers need to be looked at. I brought this up before. I think that headshot damage should be reduced by 10%. So for example, if a Hanzo headshots you, it's not 125 damage, it would go down to 230. And I think that there's a lot of damage that needs to be reduced. I think that for example, Widowmaker, 120 damage is too much. I think that Widowmaker could deal Widow could do 100 damage and have an 180 damage headshot, right? And if someone's not full HP, they just they can get 2 tapped by Widow. Widow doesn't even need to fully charge the next shot. But the fact that you don't get fully one shot, I think that's a really cool idea. I think that, for example, Sojourner having being able to do a lot of DPS and having the railgun and shooting someone is cool. But she shouldn't be able to headshot with it, because it accentuates the difference between low and high elo first of all, and it's not skillful ability usage. It's just clicking someone's head. So it's just kind of I think good aim should be rewarded. But I think headshot steal and too much, being double damage, I think it accentuates the issue. I think that it's way too strong. League of Legends did this too. And I think that, honestly, Overwatch could benefit from it. It would be really cool. I think that it would fix a lot of the issues too and allow you to put more focus on ability usage, because the difference between hitting a headshot and not actually completely keeps a power level stagnant for someone's M1. So if you hit a headshot, You will always deal a shit ton of damage, which is why I think Symmetra's a really cool hero, because you can't headshot with her. I just reducing headshot damage would allow you to open up a lot of balancing questions, because you wouldn't have to focus so much on the difference between low and high elo, for example. I mean, not like how low elo would hit headshots anyway, but I'm talking about high elo hitting a shit ton of headshots all the time. You know? I think that characters need to have equal power level as well with mobility. I think that some characters have too much power in their M1s compared to other heroes, which basically is a gatekeep in a way. I think hit scan can be very, very strong because of the headshot issue, because it's very easy to secure headshots compared to projectiles. So yeah, I actually spoke about all of this. And yeah, I think the last thing I want to talk about is the support role. The support role can be a very big issue because of their utility. But the issue with the utility is that they keep introducing band-aid fixes in terms of heroes. So for example, Anna, she may have reduced healing, but she completely negated healing to the extent of now you have to take a Kiriko if someone has an Anna. I think it's ridiculous. I think Anna Nade needs to be nerfed a lot. Damage needs to be nerfed a lot. And I think that Kiriko Suzu needs to be nerfed. But I think what they should do is they should reduce the invulnerability. I think that the invulnerability on Kiriko is ridiculous. I think it just gatekeeps Kiriko. Given the damage reduction to Kiriko's Suzu, instead of just full on negating damage, I think that'll be really interesting. Mercy need to look at, because I think that honestly, in my opinion, damage boost shouldn't be in the game, but I think that increasing the amount of damage is interesting. It just ruins threshold points. Mercy should reduce ability. I think it should be ability reduction. I think it would be interesting to give people ability cooldown reduction, and be able to give them, maybe you could even give them movement speed. Maybe you could boost things other than damage. I'm not, obviously this isn't going to be great that I'm coming up with it right now, but you could introduce movement speed buffs. You could do ability cooldown reduction. You could introduce damage reduction. You could even do an overheal shield thing with her right click. You could change the perspective, as in you could heal people and build up that boost to give someone. You don't have to keep her as an on-off type of character. You could build it up. You could be resource management. There's so much you could do with Mercy. Lucio, I think, is the best example for support in this category. Baptiste second. I think Lucio is incredibly unique. Lucio, a speed boost, utility character. It may not heal the shit ton unless he's got the crossfade boost, but it's insane how useful Lucio can be. And people don't complain about him all the time. They don't just be like, yo, Lucio's a broken piece of shit, fuck Lucio. Unless they're being dove by a random Reddit Lucio. I just think he's a good character. Baptiste is a very unique character concept. The immortality field, it really helps against dives. And it helps, with the buff recently, he's made him extremely useful. They just need the healing to be reduced though, and the utility to really be focused on. The swapping heroes you think about Overwatch 2 is really interesting, but Anna should not be able to just stop all healing someone gets. It just makes it too vulnerable to be countered, and hard counters shouldn't be as existent as they are, like Pharah, for example. It's just, they need to look at this stuff. That's all I really want to talk about it, but hopefully they focus more on the utility of the game, the abilities of the game, reduce overall healing and damage. And the too long don't read is, I think that they need to really focus on making people resource manage a lot more with abilities and focus more on positioning and creating opportunities to go in and take space and make it more strategic rather than aim based. That's all.